granddaughter is soon to be 14 years old. But when she was about 3, she would go to a daycare facility between my home and my daughter's office. So every Tuesday is Tuesdays with Grammy. I would shut down my business early afternoon and go pick her up from daycare and spend the rest of the day with her, play with her. And by the time her mom picks her up, she's had an afternoon with Grammy and Pappy. And then we would have had dinner. She would have had a bath with me. We'd go play in the bathtub. And she's ready to go home to her mom. So on one of these afternoons, I picked her up and she was just, little girl sitting in the car seat and happily riding in the back. And I said, so what did you learn today? Did you learn something at school today? And what is one thing you learned today? And she says, we were singing songs. I said, well, what did you learn? And so we'll play this little game of nursery rhymes. I would sing a line and she would sing the second line. And this thing came about that caused me to stop the car and pulled over because it just struck me. And this is the small idea I want to share today. So as we were going along, I would say, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. She's supposed to provide the next line because I would say something like Jack and Jill, and she would say went up the hill, and then I'll say the third line, she'd say the fourth line. So I said, and so Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. And the next line would be Humpty Dumpty had. Well, we all know what we were taught. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Not according to Kyla. So I said, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had, and with all full enthusiasm, this little girl sitting in the car seat, had a great day. I just pulled the car aside. I said, say that again. Humpty Dumpty had a great day, she said. It's not for discussion. It is not for argument. She was absolutely sure that Humpty Dumpty had a great day. And I said, that is so wonderful. Doesn't it change the whole story? The story that we were taught as children with the Humpty Dumpty rhyme. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. What a horrible story. If we think about many things we teach children just because that's stuff we've always learned, and don't think about how we are actually programming their minds. And this morning, the connection I made is the lecture that I was listening to by this Buddhist monk, and I am practicing my Cantonese because I did not go to school in Chinese, and this monk speaks in classical Cantonese, so I'm learning language at the same time. Sometimes I have to listen to it 2 or 3 times to grasp the profound meanings of certain words in my mother's dialect that I have never learned as a child because my mother was not schooled as well, and this is language of classical scholars. I made this connection. He says, everything that bothers us, everything that we hold of value to us, whether it's a positive value or a negative value, is because of a relationship we attach to whatever it is, right? For example, this bowl, right? If this bowl has a very special relationship to me, if I lose it, I would be very upset by it because I have a certain attachment to the bowl. And then I would worry about the bowl. I would worry about the loss I have sustained because I lost this bowl. and perhaps is a very precious antiquity that costs $100,000 in the auction market, and then I would go down this rabbit hole, yeah, and feel very anxious. Then I would lose a couple nights of sleep. And so I would worry about it. Well, I've just lost myself this bowl. I've lost $100,000 and da 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 da. Suppose I have no relationship with the bowl. This is a bowl, nothing more, nothing less. It's a bowl. If I hit it, it makes a beautiful sound. If I don't hear this sound from this bowl, what have I lost? And so people tell me, if you put this in the antique market, you might get $100,000 for it because it's an ancient Tibetan bowl that came out of this archaeological dig. And now we're building more and more and more value. And when I lose this bowl, I didn't just lose an inanimate object. What did I lose? I lose all these imaginary possessions, my dreams. If I didn't have that $100,000, I wouldn't be able to buy this, I wouldn't be able to do that, and so on, so on, so on. So now we are back to the bad country western song, that I'm going to lose my house, my horse, my car, my dog, my gun, and I'll be the homeless person in the street, and there'll be no one who want me or love me because I'm unlovable and I'm unworthy. So that spiral goes very quickly. One small thing. That is just a small example of how we worry about things, how we get angry about things, how we feel bad about things. But in the end, in this lifetime, everything that affects us has the power to affect us only because we create a relationship with that object or with that story. So how does this relate to the Humpty Dumpty story? And I thought about it. Our life is nothing more than an illusion. It's just a story. Our clients come to us and they tell us their current story. Right? I'm in a state of suffering because blah, 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 and then they'll bring this huge tub of problems. You know, my boss, for example, I once worked with somebody who in a short time of a few years had changed 4 jobs across country, and she had encountered all the jerks in the world who became her CEOs. So she had this incredible talent of finding jobs where the bosses are real jerks. And so I thought, wow, that's a talent. Usually once in a while we have a good boss. Sorry for you if you have more bad bosses than you have good bosses. But if you think about it, everything that is around us happens to us because we feed it. We feed it with our own attachments. My 3-year-old granddaughter at that time had not had the bad jaws of being fed a lot of negativity. She was only 3 years old. She doesn't know what having a great fall and all the king's horses. Well, first of all, she wouldn't know what a king was. She's never seen a horse and couldn't put the Humpty Dumpty back together again. But in her mind, if you fall down from the wall, you can still have a great day. How is it that by the time we get to be how old we are at the moment, we have lost that innocence, that God-given gift of choosing our fate, of manifesting the things we want? Of course, she went on to have a great day. She has the afternoon with her grandmother. And that's how she sees her days. Every day is a good day. I go to school, I play with my friends, I go home, my mommy loves me. Or on Tuesdays, I go home with Grammy. Grammy loves me, and I have a great time. And we play, we eat, and we have a bath and play with bubbles, and it's wonderful. That's her life at 3. What happens to us? We go to school, we learn. Actually, I think if you read most of the nursery rhymes, they are horrible. They're very ugly pictures. Right? Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. How do you want to be Jack, or do you want to be Jill? And why do you want to get a child to chant stories like that all day long, day after day? At first, they have no idea what it is. But their brain, their subconscious mind is being programmed with this over and over and over. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, had a great fall, and nothing, all the king's horses and all the king's men, that was all the powerful forces at the time, couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And the implication is that Humpty Dumpty had a really bad day. Now, a lot of times we work with clients and we say, you didn't get to write the first chapter of your life. It's not how you begin that matters, it's how you end that matters, which go back to a couple of weeks ago, we talked about our obituary. How do you want the end of your life to be? If you can figure that out, the good news is you didn't die. The bad news is you don't like what you see at the moment. The better news is you can rewrite that story. And in that very short moment, a 3-year-old taught me a piece of wisdom that most of my life studying with teachers I did not get. She rewrote the ending to that story in the way she sees her life to be. I mean, if I imagine I would be in that 3-year-old body, it's like, how great is life? I don't have to get a job. I don't have to prepare my meals. I don't even have to bathe myself. I get in the bath, mommy bathes me or Grammy bathes me, and I get to have fun. I get to sleep when I want to sleep. I get to eat what I want to eat. What a great life. But as she goes to school, she's being programmed, as all of us had at one point been programmed, that life sucks. At some point, we make ourselves believe that life sucks, is bad. Life is bad. People are bad. Wives are bad. Husbands are bad. Children are horrible. Grandparents are evil. There's a jungle out there, they tell you, when you graduate from college. The more we program ourselves and our children that life is full of big bad wolves, we program our minds to create the lifestyle we want. And we choose to delude ourselves with all those bad things. Now it's interesting, come back to real life, in real life negotiations, right? Sometimes, I do mediation work, and sometimes I'm looking at 2 parties in conflict, in a dispute. Now most people, when they're in a conflict situation and they're arguing, all they can see is what they will lose. If she doesn't agree to give me this, I will lose all my marbles. And then you go down that rabbit hole. Stuff is just stuff. It has 0 value unless we give it value. Years ago, when I was a first-year student at London University and I studied economics at that time, I had this wonderful lecture about money. What is money? Right. Money is nothing more than a medium of exchange, a measure of wealth. Money is nothing. Money is only powerful because we give it power. Money is only powerful because we believe if we don't have money, we are worthless. Money to me is only a number, and I don't say that lightly. We all need money to exist at some point in this society because we have given so much power to it. Now it's interesting, how is it that one person's work is so much more valuable than another person's work? How is it that your life as a brain surgeon is more valuable than my life as a gardener? You have 24 hours in a day. I have 24 hours in a day. How is it that when you expend an hour of your time, you make 100 times more than what I spend an hour of my life doing? Right? In the big scheme of the spiritual world, everybody's the same. That we place value on something is because we choose to have that personal relationship with that something. So when I'm looking at negotiating for a deal that involves money, many people would say, well, if this is supposed to cost $100,000, right? And I'm going to sell it to you for $1. Who wants to buy this for $1? You may decide that it's suddenly of no value anymore. Or you may imagine, what is she after? Why is she giving me a $100,000 bowl for $1? There must be something else she's after. We attach all kinds of emotions to everything that we do. And therefore, we cause our own suffering. So now you buy this for $1 and you take it away. Somebody comes along and says, Krita, you got rid of that bowl. Do you know it fetches $100,000 in the Sotheby's auction? And now I'm all upset. I'm imagining all the things that the $100,000 could have bought me, and now it's gone, and now I'm grieving, and I'm now suffering. Whereas a moment ago, I was quite happy to give it to you as a gift because it's a pretty bowl, and you like it, and you're my friend, and I want to see you smile. So I said, take it. I have another bowl. I don't need two bowls. Have it. You see how we create our own stories. If we take a moment to think about most recently, if we agonize over a decision, think about one small thing we can do to make that shift. See, in the work we do as catalysts, many people come to us and they've had a negative past, a horrible experience, a trauma here and there. Now, there is nothing we can do or anyone can do to change what has actually occurred. Right? If you had an accident and you lost a limb, I can't make you grow another leg. Right? Or you had a deal that you felt that somebody had cheated you and you feel bad. Now, remember from the very first session in Zoom, I talk about anything we feel that we don't feel good about is because we're scared. Any emotion that doesn't make us smile, that make us worry and have a whole cascade of negative emotions is because of fear. Now, if we can take that bundle of fear and flip the switch and turn it into a bundle of love, then we're not scared anymore, we're not worried anymore. We don't feel shortchanged anymore. We don't feel cheated. We don't feel jealous. We don't feel angry. We don't feel anxious. We don't feel depressed. In other words, the very small dose of universal medicine for mental health is love. Small dose, 4 letters. The same small dose that causes us all our mental suffering is also 4 letters. Starts with an F. And no, it's not where you think you're going. It's fear. F-E-A-R. We know we cannot create energy nor destroy it. It is there. The only way we can change how we feel is to change the polarity, is to transform the negative feeling into the positive feeling, is to flip that switch and change the story. and to say, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great day. Same number of words, but what a different outcome. That being said, the mantra I had created in saying, I can do this, I want to do this, I choose to do this, is simply to tell us that each one of us has that talent and power and ability to make the right choice in how we want to feel, in how we want to live our lives, by making that switch. I can simply tells the person that you have the capacity to do so. You can do this. You have the ability to do so. Now, many years ago when I embarked on my career as a health educator, and I had this big argument about, yes, many people say that we have a responsibility to make choices to live a healthy life. And I agree with that. But there are many people out there who do not have the circumstance and the ability to respond. Like if you are a child and you have no breakfast at home and you come to school and you sit all day with your stomach empty, your blood sugar is low and you're belligerent, and then you're being punished because you're belligerent because you have a physiological reason to be belligerent, and nobody could see that this child is hungry. Give him a breakfast and he would sit and learn. Right? So that child in that instance does not have the capacity to take responsibility for himself because he's a child. But most adults can make that choice, but don't know that they can make that choice. And so the first step is for us to acknowledge that we as adults, especially we're living in the United States, and some of you are not in the US, but you are in a situation where you can make choices. You have more freedom than many people in other parts of the world. But we don't acknowledge that, and we don't take that power and use it for good. Most of us take that power and use it to create more negativity. For example, a person will come and spend a lot of time and energy. I'm sure if you haven't met a person like that, I can remedy that, right? Who comes in and yada, 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 complain about anything. If the sun is shining, it's too hot. If it's raining, it's too wet, yada, 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 yada. And you feel like he's a little puppy dog that comes in your space and sprays pee all over your room because the person will spray all this negativity all over you. It's just like coronavirus. No mask, boom, 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 all the droplets are just sprayed everywhere. And if we are in that space and we allow it to happen, we deserve to be sprayed. Just like us, we have an opportunity to wear a mask out in the public and we choose not to. Well, you deserve to breathe in all those droplets, let me tell you. We know that we can, and we have that capacity to do good or to do evil, and we don't make the choice yet. Giving it more intense energy at another level is that you want to. To want something requires a little more energy than simply saying that I can do something. Now you say, I want something, which means that you have to take a step forward from being neutral to saying, I want to do this or I want to do that. And most of us don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I want to meet all the negative people in the world. Hey, I want to spend the next 24 hours of my life complaining about my life. Most of us who do a lot of negative behaviors are not even aware of it because it's become such a habit. We grow up with nursery rhymes that tell us you fall off the wall and you're doomed. All the king's horses and all the king's men can't put you together again. You are done. But I want to rewrite that story that you're not done, that you may have been given a horrible start in your life, but you are not your past. Every day you're renewed, every day you're reborn, and every day you can make new choices and rewrite your story. And so the I want to is to teach every one of us to know that We are people with desires. Because we're human, we have desires. And we want to cultivate ourselves so that we direct those desires in the right polarity. I mean, we are not perfect. We can't be 100% good or 100% bad. Go back to the engineers in the group, the Pareto principle, 80-20 is pretty good. It's a good start. And some days, if you get beyond 80-20, 80 good and 20 not so good, you will eventually make that bigger and the negative a bit smaller. And that's only because you have to acknowledge that you have the capacity to make that decision and make that change, and that you want to. And all that is still very well. You can and you want to, but if you don't exercise it, a plan that's not executed is a dream. I'm saying that again. A plan with no action is nothing more than a dream. You can sit here and daydream all you want, and it will always remain a dream. If you want it to happen, you have to do something. You have to inject some excess energy. You cannot launch a rocket just sitting here looking at it and tell it to launch. It requires as much energy to launch it as it does to circumvent the earth. We have to put some effort in. Good life, good living requires some direction and some effort. So the third piece of my mantra is that I choose to. We have to know that we have the ability to exercise an option. I can choose this. And to choose something means you have to actually do something. You can be a kind person and sit here all day and feel sorry for all the people out there. But if you don't do anything, it doesn't make you a kind person, because you did not practice kindness. A thought is a good start. So coming right back to a small thing, an idea, a thought. Our thought becomes our words. You think it, you say it, and you do it. You do it very often, it becomes a habit. And if you keep perpetuating the habit, it becomes who you are. It becomes your character. And your character governs your destiny. You're going to end up being what you do. We create our own destiny. Now, wouldn't it be great for us to teach that in nursery school and have all the children come up with all the ideas to change all the nursery rhymes in the world? If I want to continue the story that my granddaughter so wisely redirected, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. It's nice to be able to sit on the wall and do nothing, isn't it? And then life happens. Humpty Dumpty had. Now you can choose. If you were Humpty Dumpty, what do you want? I just freeze frame that. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty, what do you want? Yes, what do you want? Humpty Dumpty had a great idea, sitting on the wall. That's another option. Humpty Dumpty made a new friend because somebody else comes along and sits with him. Who has an idea? Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, so we're all sitting on the wall. It's a beautiful sunny day. The temperature is just perfect. The sun is shining.
Humpty Dumpty went out to play. Humpty Dumpty jumped off the wall to go have fun.
Be Humpty Dumpty, what do you want to do today? You sat on the wall figuring out, what am I going to do today? Good morning, everybody. What do we want to do today?
Sang their beautiful song.
Okay, Humpty Dumpty sang a beautiful song.
Humpty Dumpty smiled.
We'll never look at an egg the same way again after this. So you see, we have already changed the world by looking at Humpty Dumpty, and we are choosing to rewrite the story of Humpty Dumpty. Now, even if we are able to say this nursery rhyme, we can still change its ending. So Humpty Dumpty, traditionally Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. So what happens to an egg? Kaplunk. Now rewrite it. So Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, because all of us at some point will have a great fall. Now let's rewrite the ending. The rest of it would be all the king's horses and all the king's men. Well, we can use all our resources. We can add that line, all the king's horses and all the king's men. Well, the bad ending was couldn't put him together again. We assume that he wants to be put together again, right? So if we change that assumption, can we have a different and more positive ending? All the king's horses and all the king's men
loved him back together again.
Okay, loved him. That's very good, Nita. Loved him back together again. That's one. So he had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men, representing all the resources in the universe. That's us. We can rewrite the ending. There are many assumptions. We feel that if we're broken, that's the end of the story. Being broken can be a new beginning. We can be the egg and we can hatch out of the egg. So Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men put him back together again, and maybe he doesn't need to be put back together again. All the king's horses and all the king's men help Humpty Dumpty live a great life all over again without being the egg, because we all transform. We all transform. Right? Being broken doesn't mean being dead. This morning, one of our friends sent us a thing. Gilbert from Hong Kong said something, a quote from Helen Keller: when the road bends, it doesn't mean the road ends. So if you don't take the bend, you may have missed the corner, you miss your turn. If the road bends and you ignore it, you must have missed a turn. So what I'm saying is, I didn't get to write the beginning story of my life. I get to write the rest of the chapters. I get to choose the ending. People often use the notion of narrative therapy, what I call storytelling. It's when we embark on the idea that we have an opportunity now to rewrite or to write the rest of the story. We don't even need to rewrite the past. We can simply read it as chapters of the book and accept it. We don't have to accept all the bad consequences of bad experiences. We can reframe that, we can rewrite that, and better yet, we can reinvent the rest of the story. Isn't it amazing that I have to pause and learn from a 3-year-old? How profound is that? I mean, she's almost 14 now. She's still a very cheerful, loving, positive young lady. You know, some kids are just naturally very grouchy. Don't know why. They might have brought it from another life. And some kids are just simply open to good things. Whatever we are being challenged with, I think if we take a small moment and consider an idea that we have not considered before, we'll be able to come up with the third solution. Because most of the time we ask the question, is it yes or is it no? But we've forgotten the many possible alternatives to the two very sharp endings. Is it a yes, is it a no? Maybe we want to have 5 more interesting adventures before we get to the end. Maybe the broken egg at the bottom of the wall can be transformed into a different mass of protoplasm, and it would climb its way back to the wall and spread itself across the wall and take over the wall and say, hey, I can have more friends to play with because now I'm stretched across the wall. I know it's kind of bizarre, but that's what brainstorming is about. Okay, so that is my little idea today. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And we can change that story. Like Kyla said, Humpty Dumpty had a great day. But it can also have n number of endings, because we have n number of positive people out there. If you choose that it will be worse than having a great fall, that too could happen. But why? Why do we want to do that? You'll be surprised how many people They take a bad situation and make it 100 times worse. We have that talent. I see you, Jen, smiling. Yes, I'm sure if you work in the corporate world, you will see that one bad thing can lead to 100 worse things. People nodding their heads. So what do we do about it? We can make the small shift by stopping it. If we know something bad is heading in a worse direction and we do nothing, then we're enabling that train wreck to happen. We are culpable because we have the ability to make a small shift and we didn't. So those are the things we want to take heart to, that we have the ability to make one small shift. Long time ago, a friend of mine said, "Oh, Kwitai, I could have got a PhD too." I said, "I'm sure you could. I'm sure you're smart enough." But I said, here's the bottom line, my friend. You didn't. I did. Because I walked the walk and sweat the buckets of blood that required to get there. To say I could have done this and I could have done that is a lie. The bottom line is you didn't do anything about it. If you're in a situation where you're watching someone bully someone else and you turn and walk away, well, you could have helped, but you didn't. If we could have worn a mask to go outside and we didn't, we are responsible for hurting other people. You could have done something about it, but you didn't. And it doesn't have to be big stuff. It's the little stuff that makes a difference. If you went and checked out at a store and you notice the lady at the cash register had punched in a wrong decimal point, instead of charging you $29, charge you $2.90, and you walked away and didn't make the correction, you've just committed theft. Oh, it's only $20. And I said, that's even worse. You're willing to sell your soul for $20. You can't be worth very much. Because to gain $20 from somebody else's mistake, she might have to pay for it out of her paycheck. And it might be $20 to you. It might be 3 hours of work for her after tax to get that $20 to go home to feed her family. Small things. We don't have to be saving all the whales all at the same time. One small thing will change the world. What is one small thing you can do today to make somebody smile? The great thing about this country is one voice counts. That we have a voice, and if we don't use it, that would be a shame. And we want to use our voice in places that are productive, that actually would make a difference. I know when I was younger, back in the day when I was an academic, my passion in my field was school nutrition programs. I wanted to do something about children who come to school who do not have food at home, that we at least can offer them one cooked meal at school to make a difference. It took me all the way to Washington, D.C. to lobby. But I think it does make a difference to be heard. I remember being in a big room with a lot of people. I deliberately wore a red suit to be noticed because I'm all 5'3". I was there and I raised my hand with this congressional panel, and they recognized me and said that the lady in the red suit, give her the mic. Whatever I said in those few moments, I know that there are at least 1 or 2 people who heard the message, and they may go out and do something about it as well. I know in that moment, on my own dime, most people had their organizations paid their way there. I paid my own way there. For a professor with a very small salary, it was a huge deal for me to fly there, to stay in a hotel and do all that stuff. But it meant something to me. And I know that today, if there are children at our public school systems who benefit from a nutritious cooked meal at the school cafeteria, that may be their only meal for the day. that I know as a member of the American School Health Association for many years, that small piece. I don't need to be a big hero in anything. I just need to know in that moment when I elected to spend my life of that moment to do something meaningful, it will have a ripple effect. Somebody out there will know it. Sometime last year, I was at a meditation retreat on the Pacific shore in Oregon. We wanted to send prayers throughout the world. And I thought this would be an interesting thing. So it was very cold, so a few friends and I, we walked to the edge of the water, took our shoes off, and stood in the icy cold water. And we chanted prayers and we slapped the water. We make the ocean vibrate. We are on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. And those few ripples that we created on the shore of the Pacific Ocean in Oregon, and we chanted prayers and it went across the ocean and it will go around the world, and somebody somewhere, you have to believe it, I believe it, someone somewhere out there will receive the peace, the prayers, and the blessing. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great, everybody, day. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and I hope to see you again on Sunday.